everybody. It is Dean Z speaking to you from the University of Michigan Law School. Today, as you can see, Dustin has me set up in this big chair, and I kind of feel like the guy from Masterpiece Theater, which none of you know what that is, but I encourage you to Google it. It's a PBS show from my childhood, back when we had like 3 TV channels, so watched a lot of Masterpiece Theater with my mom. Let's get started. This is not interesting what I'm talking about right now. Should we move on? Yes, let's do that. Okay, today, a lot of Q&A straight from YouTube. We're concentrating on the YouTube questions right now. So let's just dive right in. Question from Shelly Melly, 1828. Question, how or should an applicant include media mentions or press coverage? I love this question because it's it's very specific, and yet it has a very, I think, broad angle to it. So as with any information that you are including in your application that is something other than like what is required to be included, you have to think, to what end am I including this? So the question is, what's the media coverage or the press mentions? What are they about? So like yesterday, I was talking to an alum who was very proud of an interview that he had in the Michigan Daily back when he was a student about the Chrysler Center here where people play basketball. I wouldn't include that. He sent me the article. I don't know why he was so proud of it. It really wasn't important. No offense, Jonah, but it wasn't important. So if you are being interviewed, though, about something that is sort of relevant to law school or a legal career or something, a topic matter in which you are an expert and that's something you are making a part of your application materials, then yes, you should include it. If most stuff I don't think you should include. If you were going to include it, I would include it in the section of your resume that is devoted to, extracurriculars and interests and, away from your work stuff. Or conceivably, if it were related to your undergraduate education, you could put it in the education section. If there's some, like you were president of a club and you were interviewed 10 times about that club, something like that. You could put it there. But I would stick to a consideration of, is it relevant? Is it telling anybody anything that is important to the law school undertaking? And I wouldn't go overboard. I wouldn't give like 20 mentions. I would just do some highlights, So I hope that is helpful. Shelly Melly, 1828. Okay, next from Travis Martin. How do you look at candidates that have a lower GPA, paren 3.45-ish, and a lot of high-level campus involvements? I spent lots of time trying to be involved and working and maybe less time than I should have been studying. So first of all, 3.45, that was my undergrad GPA, my favorite number. Not really, but anyway, I understand what you're saying. It's not the greatest GPA. And one of the reasons to not worry about a lower GPA is exactly high-level campus involvements and work, both of which you seem to have done. So on the one hand, that's great that you can identify what it is that impacted your GPA in a negative way. And I would include that information in an addendum, in a brief way. At the same time, the whole point of looking at the GPA is for us to get a sense of your academic readiness. So in addition to explaining why you had that GPA, you want to use all other aspects of your application to show that you are academically ready. So, it's all the more reason, this is true for everybody, but all the more in this case where you want to make sure that your personal statement and any other essays are flawless and, use great grammar and are sharp and to the point so you sound, smart. Now, that doesn't mean put on a persona that is not yours and using language that is not authentic to you. But it does mean, you really need to take that seriously. Do not dash that off. And I would also look to see if you can find at least one undergraduate faculty member who can say, Sarah had some challenges when she was in college. She was very involved in whatever, blah, blah, blah. But she was really sharp. And I really valued her contributions to the class discussion and whatever it is, right? Someone who could say, yeah, this person is smart. Don't worry about that GPA. There are lots of bad reasons. As an admissions officer, I feel very strongly that there are lots of bad reasons why someone's GPA may not reflect their academic skill. Give me a reason to look past the GPA if your GPA is not an asset. That's the bottom line. All right? Next question. I like trees. I like trees too. I just accepted a paralegal job at a prestigious big law firm to learn what lawyers really do and confirm big law is what I might aim for, but I'm worried that law schools don't care about it because it's so stereotypical. What are your thoughts on paralegal applicants? Do they have to stand out in other ways because their job is stereotypical, like have extracurricular letters of rec or extraordinary extracurriculars in college? It is not as typical as you think it is. So on the one hand, pretty much everybody who has one of those jobs is going to apply to law school. So that's probably why you feel like, oh, it's so typical. Everybody I know is applying to law school. But most law school applicants do not have these jobs. So I would say maybe, I counted this last year, but I'd say about 20% of our entering class, I could be off on that, but I think that's about right. About 20% have been a paralegal in some form, and most of them are not paralegals at big law firms. Most of them, there's a wide range of places to be a paralegal. So some of them are paralegals at small law firms. Some of them are paralegals at government organizations. Some of them are paralegals at nonprofits. There's a relatively small number of applicants who are paralegals at big law firms. And it's great experience. It's demanding. It really does show you what the practice of law is like in that context. Now, a lot of our students go into big law, and I find it very comforting to know that there are people who have tried it out and who know what they are getting into. Of course, some of them do it and think, that is not for me. I still want to go to law school, but I want to do something very different with my degree. Also comforting to know this is someone who's put thought into it. So bottom line, this is only a positive. It is certainly not necessary that you have that kind of job in order to get into law school, but it is only a positive. So I do not think that in any way you should be thinking, I need to make up for this experience. It's a good thing that you're doing this. Plus, chances are good that you will get very good letters of rec out of it, because the people who work at those kinds of law firms know what kinds of letters law schools like to see. So that's an added bonus. Next, Savannah asks, despite being a high school achievement, would it be recommended to include your status as a National Merit Scholar on your resume for admissions? If so, should it just be listed along with your college degree? Thanks. It would not be recommended, Savannah. No, life begins in college. Don't tell me about your National Merit Scholar. Yeah, it just don't. That's all. Nothing more to say. Let's move on. Next, Connor asks, in admissions, what weight, if any, is given to having a double major in undergrad over just a single major? For that matter, what weight is given to the major of the degree you receive? Great question. First, though, I want to say the question, what weight, the way that's framed, makes it sound like there's some formula and that, a double major gets like a 0.4 and a single major gets a 0.35. It's not like that, right? It's sort of part of the gestalt that we look at when we're trying to make a decision about someone, so that is one thing that we might look at. I would say, in general, double major versus single major, I don't personally pay much attention to it. I can imagine other people do. I notice it when it's something like a chemistry major and an art major or something, or an English major and a physics major, two very different kinds of majors. I find that intriguing because I think most people's brains tend to work in one kind of way, and when you've got a brain that can work in two very different kinds of way, that is impressive to me. But most double majors are more like sociology and poli-sci, or whatever. Just, I can't actually think of any other majors. Sorry, but you get my point. Like two similar majors. So I feel like if you want to do a double major because that means something to you, that feels fulfilling to you, and you are interested in two different topics, go for it. It's certainly never going to hurt you in the slightest, but I wouldn't do it just to check a box that you think someone else is going to be impressed with. And then in terms of what weight is given to the major, that is definitely one of the things we're looking at. So many majors, especially if you have a lower GPA, many majors have a very strict curve or very objective grading evaluations. And so, the modal grade is a B or even lower in some majors versus some majors where you can tell the modal grade is usually an A. So that's part of what we think about. And some majors are, more academically demanding. So that's part of what we're going to think about. But it's a very small, at the margin sort of consideration. So I wouldn't, I really feel strongly about this. I've said this in 50 different ways over the course of various videos. Pick the thing that means something to you. Don't do it because you think it's going to impress the person who's reading it, because it may not mean anything to them, and it's your college education. So, you only get one of those. So do the thing that really floats your boat, okay? Next, I like this one. Brooklyn 8787 says, AI is the way to go, remove all subjectivity. Hard disagree, not just because that puts me out of a job. I'd find a different job. But to me, I truly believe in the importance of bringing a human element to this process and assessing things in a subjective way. It does mean that there will be inconsistencies, and that most people aren't totally comfortable with that. People like the idea that if they're getting assessed for something, it's extremely consistent and everybody is being assessed the same way. I get that. But I also think most people don't really like the idea that AI is going to be the thing that's making the decision for them. So I am skeptical that most people would agree with you there, Brooklyn 8787. Also, I recognize that you may yourself be a robot, so maybe you want my job. Call me, we can talk. All right, next, Golden Thief asks, on my resume, if I've worked a job in high school, would it still be acceptable to have on my resume? Again, no, don't tell me things from high school. Although, if you started a job in high school and you've kept it up through college and so forth, in that case, of course, yes, you should include it. But if it's just something you did in high school, one and done, nope, don't put it on there. Life begins at college. Next, we have Joker John, who says, I'm not sure if I want to go to law school, so I'm scared to ask my boss for a letter of rec. How would it look if I had 3+ years of work experience and only get letters from coworkers, not my boss, and professors from undergrad? First of all, I would say I get being scared to ask your boss, and I respect that, and I am not in your work situation, so take this for what it's worth. You might want to try sounding your boss out about, where you see me in 2 or 3 years. And you may find out that your boss says to you, you're really bright, and I love the work you are doing here, but I have no expectation that this is going to be your lifetime career. I would expect you to go back to school or, do something at another level. They may open the door that makes you feel like, oh, okay, actually this is not going to be impossible. So you might want to see if you could get a better sense on that and whether your fear is actually well-founded. Next, I would say, letters from coworkers are not really that useful to me. I really want to see someone who has been in a position to assess you. Now, if there's just no one, including maybe there's someone who used to work there who has gone somewhere else, or maybe it's a coworker who doesn't supervise you but is at a higher level than you, or something like that, that would be a little bit better than just like your friend who does the same job as you. I would honestly say that is not useful. And in that case, I would just get letters from undergrad if that is a possibility for you. And that's fine. Many schools have a strong preference for letters from undergrad. I like to see a mix, but I would never hold it against you if you don't have one from work, because I assume that some people are in this situation where they can't get letters from work. By the same token, if you're out for 4 or more years and you can't get one from undergrad, I also don't expect to see that. So, we're human. We understand that not everybody can get the perfect mix of letters of rec from the perfect, mix of human beings. Okay, last question for today from Mr. Weisenheimer. He asks, on the resume, should we indicate whether or not internships/jobs were paid? Not necessary. Some people do, and I hesitate to give the answer on this because I know that I have one reader who really likes to know if it was paid. I don't think that that is relevant. I think it is, I like to know, what were you doing, how much time were you spending, whether you got paid for it or not is not a big issue for me. Although I do like to know that people have done things, some kind of activity from which they could have been asked to stop doing it. Like, in other words, that you could have gotten fired, right? I think that just changes your way in the world, right? That you've had that kind of a job. you've had to please some boss who may or may not be a reasonable human being. So I'd like to see that, but it doesn't have to. But I don't. As a general matter, I don't care. So it's like if you got one job where you were working for McDonald's and you've got a bunch of other things that may or may not have been paid employment. I know you worked at McDonald's, so that's enough for me, right? So in general, I would say not necessary to show that it was volunteer or paid. Although again, there might be some times where you want to show that it was volunteer work because you want to show that you were, taking time out of your life to do something that was not required of you. So it really depends on how it fits in your whole application material, whether it makes any sense to highlight that at all. Most cases, not necessary. Okay, so that's a lot of Q&A. I hope that was useful. And now for grammar. Sorry to pick on you, Mr. Weisenheimer, but I'm going back to your question. You said, on the resume, should we indicate whether or not internships or jobs were paid? You know what you don't need in that sentence? The word or not. You can just say, should we indicate whether internships were paid? There's a lot of, whether or not has a particular utility in some sentences, like whether or not you are going to go to Michigan Law School, you should learn how to read and write. In that sentence, you have to say or not. But most of the time, you don't need the or not. So when you're using the word whether, and you want to say whether or not, try leaving or not out and see if it still makes sense. And if it does, leave it out. All right, that's your grammar tip for the day. Hope that is useful. Okay, thanks so much for all these comments. We have a bunch of comments and questions from TikTok too, and that's hard to say, TikTok too, Timbuktu. All right. This is going to be on the Gen Z edit that Dustin does, probably. We can all look forward to that. What was I saying? Oh, we're going to do the TikTok comments, and but that will be. I'll do this one by one some other day. All right. I think it's time to wind this up, don't you? Thank you to everybody. Please leave your comments or questions in the comments, or send us an email to law.jd.admissions@umich.edu. What is even happening to me? And put vlog in the subject line. And thanks to Dustin, who I have managed to make laugh with my idiocy. And wherever you go blue.